Welcome. Hi, my name is Omer. Thank you for coming out to listen to my talk. Today I'm going to present you an offensive network security research related to the nation-state attacks targeting telecommunication networks. Just briefly, what we are going to cover is introduction to the telco network architecture and the network protocols that are being highly targeted, such as GRX, network architecture, and SS7 protocol. And the main concern of this talk is one of the most credited government implants, Regin malware. Before delving into its capabilities, I will try to briefly remind the rootkit techniques, as Regin is a multi-component long-term intelligence gathering rootkit. Afterwards, we will browse through Regin capabilities and then analyze how it could be weaponized in an offensive Gsm network hacking, as recently there are more technically complex implants discovered by the researchers. We will briefly make a comparison. And finally, I will present you a demo to show you how some of the techniques employed by the Regin implant could be re-implemented by a high-level programming language, such as Windows Driver Development Kit and Win API programming in C++. Yes, briefly about myself. My academical background is computer science. I'm currently working for KPN Telecom is a Red Team, which is also known as Royal Dutch Telecom. I used to work for companies like Verizon, IBM IAS. I perform security assessments on my day-to-day work, and I'm very interested in malware analysis and rootkit techniques. And this is Red Team. We are based in Amsterdam, and it's only 6 minutes from the Amsterdam's most popular center called as the Red Light District. What inspires us to carry this research was to analyze and determine attack services of GSM and inner GSM networks. Governments are not only hacking their own citizens, but spy on each other by covert hacking operation with tools like Regin and stealth malwares. Surveillance programs reach a crazy level. Recent leaks from on media confirms that network devices, telecom networks are the victims of these programs or directly contributors of them. Once the Regin hacking campaign revealed, pretty much each and every telecommunication company got paranoid and tried to make sure that they haven't been affected by the same attack. And rootkits are really fun, that are requiring a lot to learn about OS internals, kernel working principles, and the computer architecture. I'm sure not only understanding the incident, but also to be able to reproduce and simulation of attack mean a lot to those whose day-to-day work is to break systems. Gsm network architecture is very complex. However, let us try to break it down the following core elements. Global System for Mobile Communication stands for GSM. Network is developed for a digital mobile radio communication over wireless and voice and the mobile communications. Gprs an extension of GSM network that provide mobile wireless data communication. The GSM network consists of the following elements from a security perspective. The important ones are mobile station, base transceiver receiver, base station controller, base station subsystem, mobile switching center, authentication center, home location register, visitor location register. And For a researcher, which are these components are highly being targeted are the mobile switching center. This is the component for digital ISDN switch that sets up connection to other mobile switching centers and to base station controllers. Mobile switching centers are the form of wired backbone of GSM network and can switch calls to the public switch telecommunication network. Equipment identity register is the equipment is a database that stores international equipment identities that's known as IMEI numbers. All of the stations within the network. IMEI is a equipment identity assigned to the registers, manufacturers of the mobile stations, and equipment identity register provides security features such as blocking calls from handhelds that have been stolen, for example. HLR is a home location register. It's a central database for all users to register to the GSM network. It stores static information about subscribers, such as international mobile subscribers' identity, subscribed services, and a key for authenticating subscriber. The HLR also stores dynamic subscriber information, for instance, the current location of the mobile subscriber physically. An authentication center associated with HLR is the authentication center. This database contains algorithms for authenticating subscribers and the necessary key for encryption to safeguard user for authentication. And lastly, VLR, Visitor Location Register, is distributed database that temporarily stores information about the mobile station that are active in geographic area for which VLR responsible. A VLR associated with mobile switching center in the network, when a new subscribes, roams into the allocation area, the VLR responsible for copying subscriber information from HLR to its local database. GSM uses various interfaces for communicating among its network elements. Communication also occurs over the interfaces to the management databases. The management database components are VLR, HLR, authentication center, and equipment register identifier. Communication might traverse multiple MSCs, but ultimately must reach the gateways. The separate interfaces exist between each pair of the elements. Each interface requires its own programming protocol. The network switching subsystem is the heart of the GSM system. It connects wireless network to the standard wired network. It is responsible for handoff calls from one base station systems to another to perform services such as charging, accounting, and roaming. And different signaling protocols are used interfaces. Some as NSS interfaces involved in only control signaling protocols with no traffic. For example, no traffic is generated on the interfaces between HLR, VLR. These interfaces carry only signaling mobile application part on the SS7 protocol. So how these are related to our research? The Regin malware specifically targeted GSM networks. The antivirus companies say Regin has been developed to be a low-key type of malware that can potentially be used in the espionage campaigns lasting several years since 2008. The company was only able to analyze its actions, decrypting samples, files, discovering its actions are particularly difficult to decipher. The Regin-related stealth hacking campaigns are also confirmed by the recent leaks hit the media. The following picture was taken in Germany. A group of activists protesting against GCHQ and NSA to get their data removed from their databases. Until now, no one has real and clear idea how to target GSM and other institutions were hacked. So we try to determine the possible attack scenarios and the attack surfaces, since our competitors, like high-profile organizations such like NSA, GCHQ, our approach pretty much looked like similar to the old-school techniques of North Korea to bring them there on knees. So in order to determine potential attack scenarios, we decided to perform a large-scale service enumeration from base stations. For these reasons, we have possibly tapped GSM communication from radio base stations. We greatly utilized Michael Osman's passive network tapping utility in our research, as it is seen in the picture. We try to collect as much information as possible from different endpoints of 2G, 3G, and LTE communication. It also included possible management services that were reachable from base station and to network switches. So what we have discovered during the research from the BTS was the absence of physical intrusion system. I'm specifically talking about signaling intrusion, whether wiretapping happens or not. And devices, we also discovered that devices can be altered or changed. Most GSM companies don't even take into consideration if somebody infiltrates into a base station. And we discovered vulnerable services running accessible from BTS, including management interfaces with default password, public and private keys, and absence of tamper resistance and unauthorized access protection. Well, the network tapping shouldn't have been possible in that case. And there was a big segmentation issue, and inner non-routable segments were reachable from the BTS. And our conclusion and experiment revealed that it was possible to exploit network subsystems from the core Gprs unit, from the BTSs. Since base stations are one of the most outer GSM network components, we wanted to see whether it is possible to attack other inner components. They store juicy information such as authentication controller, HLR, and VLR. If you ever perform similar assessment, you would be surprised where you can get in from GSM network, where you can get in GSM network from the radio stations, especially if the segmentations are not correctly implemented. This is what we experienced. And let's take a look on network components that could be targeted remotely. GRX is Gprs roaming exchange. This acts as a hub for Gprs connections from roaming users, removing the need of desiccated links between each Gprs service provider. It's a network consisted of peering interconnects. The main GRX gateways are located for Europe in Amsterdam and for Asia in Singapore. Essentially, when you travel abroad, your phone works communicated through your provider at home through this infrastructure. GSM roaming exchange interconnects networks. Your local GSM provided abroad, trust-based, highly interconnected, made for internet sharing. A failure or malicious activity would affect multiple users and multiple machines. Multiple attack vectors are available, not limited to the particular segment or where you are originating from. Gprs tunneling protocol is a group of IP-based communications protocols used to carry general packet radio service within the GSM, UMTS, and LTE networks. GTP can be decomposed into separate protocols, GTP-C, GTP-U, and GTP prime. GTP-C used within the Gprs core network for signaling between Gprs support and support nodes. GTP-U is used for carrying user data within the Gprs core network between radio network and the core network. GTP prime uses the same message structure as GTP-C and GTP-U, but has an independent function. GTP can be used with UDP or TCP. UDP is either recommended or mandatory. One of the most important features of GTP tunnels is that DNS on GRX used for resolving APNs to set up GTP tunnel. An access point is the name of gateway between a Gprs 3G and 4G mobile network and another computer network for requiring access to the public internet. In the following network capture, standard GTP packet transmit a lot of juicy information, such as IMSI, subscriber network, tunnel endpoint. These might be also useful to correlate a person and his/her activities to the rest of the world, if you have enough information. And TID is a field to present the GTPC header using the tunnel identified. If TDID is a fully qualified tunnel endpoint identifier. If you are not familiar with all these GRX network and protocol details, you can imagine as if your carrier read these settings on your cell phone once you set up, and then does things to like determine the correct IP to connect to, and to connect to secure gateway and see you need a private network like a VPN. And according to the former head of the National Security Agency, Michael Hayden, he agreed with the idea that metadata, the information collected by the NSA about phone calls and other communication, that doesn't include the actual content, can tell the government everything about anyone it is targeting for surveillance, often making the actual content communication is unnecessary. And advances in machine learning and artificial intelligence make it possible to predict potential human behavior if enough data is provided. What is SS7 is the common channel signaling systems that transport SS7 messages over an SS7 network which is developed in 1970s, and which this implementation didn't introduce any security features back then. Then there is a SIGTRAN. SIGTRAN is a set of protocol, extension of SS7 protocol, defined to transport SS7 messages over IP networks. SS7 introduces procedures for user identification, routing, billing, and call management. SS7 consists of parts, message transfer parts, MTP1, MTP2, and MTP3 for physical signaling, connection control. There is also signaling connection part, transport capabilities, application part, telephony user part, ISDN user part. Some of the SS7 include flow control of transmitted information, traffic congestion control, peer identity status detection, or traffic monitoring and monitoring measurement. SS7 suits global telecommunication protocol standards that define procedures by which network elements within the public switch telephone telephony network exchange control information over digital links for setting up, managing, and tearing down wireline and wireless calls. Since SS7 is not application-specific and works over IP, it enables multiple network elements to work together. There are various ready-to-use tools available for SS7 experimentations. One of them is SS7 analysis tool that I use during my research. As a part of Regin malware attack surface analysis, we performed a network traffic analysis over SS7 protocol. The experimentation revealed that it was possible to exfiltrate many, so to say, juicy information, such as caller no, callee no, information related to their call, such as call duration, call start and times, and the call status. And please remember that these are all information, so-called metadata, for which people are being killed. Let's browse through some of the attack scenarios over SS7 protocol. When a subscriber registers on a switch, the subscriber profile is copied from HLR to VLR database. From HLR to the VLR database, assuming an attacker managed to make changes in VLR database, he can change parameters and fake subscriber info so that victim can be redirected to a conference call to call each time when a call made. So the attacker can simply record and listen to the call passively while a caller, assuming that he is directly communicating a callee. By introducing a decoy VLR unit to the SS7 network, an attacker can intercept SMS messages, drop a confirmation that the message was received to the recipient. If the victim used mobile banking or any other service that use one-time SMS pad, then he can recover or steal these passwords to make money transfer or do the takeover internet accounts. Furthermore, the following attack scenarios are also possible by manipulating VLR and HLR units within the SS7 networks: interception of SMS messages, interception of outgoing calls, redirecting incoming calls or outgoing calls, making changes in user bills and the balance. Recently, Nokia researchers discovered that it is possible to unblock cell phone by exploiting a trust relationship between IMEI and IMSI for equipment identity register access. Equipment identity the register simply checks whether controller unit returns 0 in map check IMEI structure and then treats phone as if whitelisted. So you can read more about this attack scenario as the research released for public and available on the internet. An interesting mail log revealed the hacking team, which is known for selling weaponized surveillance tools to the oppressive governments, are also interested in exploiting SS7 for user location tracking. It is technically true that, as it is seen on the circle, red circle, the location of mobile phone could be obtained during the time of query. Rootkits can be analyzed in two categories: kernel and user land rootkits. When we say user or ring-tree rootkits, we are referring executables that require least system privileges. However, kernel rootkits, in other words, ring 0 rootkits, run highly privileged level of operating system. These are also known as device drivers. Hooking is a technique hijacking a function or a system call and changing execution flow in a way that attacker can modify, change, or obtain what is being sent. We can think as if a pirate hijacks a ship where they steal treasure and let a ship continue to its destination if they wish. Hooking techniques used by the malicious applications to monitor user actions or application behavior, as well as legitimate applications for the same purpose. For instance, antivirus applications use hooking techniques to detect malicious behavior in the system, such as keylogging, backdoors, and etc. And the same applies to the malicious application sandboxes as well. Rootkits also use these techniques for malicious or hiding their activities within the system they infected. Most commonly known techniques for userland applications are import address table hooking, DLL injections, and inline hooking. More advanced kernel rootkits use rather system service table descriptor hooking, input-output request hooking, interrupt address table descriptor, and global address descriptor table hooking, and then lastly, sysenter hooking. These techniques are widely documented and available on internet, so we will not delve into these. So I advise you to take a look on these on internet and read it. And Regin is a very multi-platform, very complex multi-platform rootkit that consisted of dropper module and multi-stage user and kernel level components. Each level seemed responsible of decrypting and loading modules into the memory and executing them. The most interesting feature of Regin platform was that it used orchestrator, and it was very new to the researchers until the date of discovery. It can be taught as a RPC calls to specific kernel driver to enable and activate them. If then the payloads that utilize for the actually performing malicious action in the system, one of the most interesting malicious action was to be able to employed by the Regin rootkit was to be able to monitor Gsm network base station commands, as you may have read on the antivirus reports. So what were the challenges and the hurdles of this research? No one had the dropper module started date of the analysis. It was multi-stage and encrypted, very complex modular framework. Modules are invoked by RPC calls by the framework. Malware data are stored inside the virtual file system, and also the encryption type was RC5. Not commonly seen in malware implementation up till that time. And research Gsm network had no indication of compromise. So we came up with a solution on how to solve this problem. The best way to start was to reverse the encryption brain of the framework, the orchestrator, and accompanied them with memory dumps of infected systems in collaboration to the different researchers, and estimate costs to do dynamic analysis in that way. A similar research has done by a Russian researcher, and it has more detailed explanation on the given link. So if we delve into the Regin framework stages, the stage 1, 2, and 3 of the Regin platform were solely responsible of description of preceding stages. Stage 1 is simply prepares the execution of stage 2, which is developed as a kernel module. In the snippet, stage 1 simply uses memory kernel calls to allocate memory pool for stage 2. Consequently, it makes sense since the preceding module is a kernel driver. Stage 2 had a configuration block contains the names of two system directory that hold the encrypted third stage in their extended attributes. So if the stage third sends a signal, stage 2 can delete the start of code of the Regin. That would make the detection much more harder. And the second stage also creates a marker file that can be used to identify infected machine. It can simply clear previous stages and creates an encrypted file, virtual file system, that's used for kernel payloads. So actually the kernel payloads are stored in a file container, virtual file container. So stage 3 is kernel driver, manager, and stage 4 is the brain of the Regin framework, that is orchestrator, responsible of loading kernel modules. Key stack attach process an interesting Win API call. That routine attaches current thread to the address space of target process that we observe analyzing Regin platform. Since our goal was to reproduce and simulate Regin functionalities and instrument payloads, I created a simple routine that simply attaches to an application and intercepts system calls and changes them in a way that we wish. This is a very simple code snippet showing how to obtain process environment block of a process and then obtain base addresses of modules and attaching a thread to it. This may not be very concrete comparison among Uruborus, Regin, Dugu2, but Dugu2 seems to be most complex route discovered until now. And also modules and the approach how to operate malicious actions on the targeted system changed over the time. For instance, Uruborus back in the past bypassing patch guard, but Regin and Dugu2 were using stolen and legitimate certificates. In order to simulate Regin behavior, I created a small framework consisting of two modules, kernel and user level module, and it simulates orchestrator behavior that is implemented in the similar way implemented in Regin framework. And the features of the simulator include covered data exfiltration, run as a thread of the legitimate application address space and totally make it invisible to the users. Orchestrator, simulator, and partial RPC calls, same as it in Regin framework. Monitor of file system, registry, and network call hooking, backdoor, and keylogger module. pretty much the malwares that you can see in ransomware, CryptoLocker, and etc. So time for demo. I hope it won't fail. So it's a Windows 7 box. I tried implemented for both 64-bit and 32-bit. I'm going to show you the 32-bit. Everything written in C++ and Windows Development Kit, driver development kit. I have two modules, which is executable here, userland and kernel driver. And this is a batch file, simply invokes to, I will show the content of the batch file. This simply loads to executable with hardcoder patch and invokes the system controller and executes as a file system kernel driver, and then starts it, and then executes to userland of the framework. So since it is not weaponized with any zero-day or packed within an executable, a simple executable, just for demonstration purposes, I made it very simple. What I'm going to do is I will just copy these three to Windows directory. So it's a normal user, then I run a privileged user, and then yes. This is the content of infector. I will simply run it. So what it does, it simply manual infect. It runs, and right now system infected likewise in Regin malware, and I will show you. Since the malware is implemented by simple SSDD calls right now, the hooking type, so it can be clearly seen that these are hooks, kernel level hooks that intercepts and changes behavior in the system. And this is the unprivileged user. I have a client, so I can remotely connect, and depending on firewall configuration, I could change the port as well. But for the sake of simplicity, I will show here the capabilities. So it's a client. It can connect to the infected machine by simply providing IP address. I hard-coded the port number for the sake of simplicity. So it connects, it gives a shell. You can just run some malicious activities on the system. And by the way, this is totally still totally updated malware, antivirus, and it cannot detect the execution of it because it intercepts some calls and hides itself from the antivirus. And I want to just demonstrate you some of the simple behavior client commands I can send to system. I can run executable on the system, invoke some file, open it. I can encrypt entire disk, and I can kill the system by simply writing some changes in the file structure of the system. For example, let me demonstrate like this. I think I don't have Notepad. Maybe I can demonstrate to you some malicious. I successfully overwritten the disk. When I try to restart the system, shouldn't be able to find the operating system. Yeah, this is the bubble, if you can see. Well, I think that's it. Do you have any questions? All right. Thank you very much.